Unchimaka. This is the earth, Mother Earth. That is who we are. That is who protects us. That is who gives us life.
We only get one earth. In our Lakota way of life, we have to have that balance and keep that tradition alive of respect for the earth.
In our language, we call it tate. The wind, like any other power of the world, can either harm or do good. When the Oceti Ŝakowiŋ Power Authority began to form, I felt like it was really important to always keep grounded and humble that we're working with one of the powers of the world. We have a relationship with the wind like we have a relationship with the earth, the animals, and everything that we come across. We can't not think of them. We can't own them.
The wind energy project is a kind of a no-brainer for us. Something the tribe has been pursuing for a very long time. Whoever controls the energy controls the economy. Historically, we've lived in poverty and the unemployment rate's always been high, and there hasn't been jobs on the reservation. Our younger people, they want to work, they don't want to sit around, and they want to go out there and make a living for themselves and their families. With a project like this, there'll be jobs to keep people employed, not just in construction, but in the long run as well. The taxes, the tribe will get back so many millions in taxes. It's going to bring a lot of money into the tribe, and in turn the tribe can help the people in that regard.
In order to be sovereign, we have to have an economic base. Our dream is that this will bring income to our people where we can be more self-sufficient.
That's what this process for the wind energy is about. It's about creating a process for change, a positive change for our children, for our elders, for our way of life.
That's important for the tribes, important for all of us that we preserve our cultural resources.
It's a thought to save our world, to keep our tradition and our culture alive.
It's good projects like this that bring out that unity among the tribes. We're all relatives, whether we like it or not, but we're all related and we need to help each other.
Good afternoon. We are here to talk about one of the most intriguing projects that I've come across so far in my coverage of renewable energy. An amazing collaboration between the Sioux Nations, represented by the Oceti Ŝakowiŋ Power Authority, and Apex. And as you can see by the video, which was the great setup, this is just a very unique collaboration and a potentially powerful collaboration, not just for the communities that it will serve, but for the people that invest in it, because it will be a different sort of investment, not just for the renewables themselves, but for diversity and inclusion and so many of the themes that we talk about here. I am so pleased to introduce the panel today. Lyle Jack, he is the chairman for the Oceti Ŝakowiŋ Power Authority. Caroline Herron is the project manager for SAME. And Steve Vavrick is the Chief Commercial Officer for Apex Clean Energy. First question is for Lyle, and it's just, as I was reading about the authority and the goals, it's a very ambitious one. We'll get to the specific projects that you're doing with Apex in a moment, but ultimately, you're trying to develop at least 1 gigawatt of power on the collective lands represented by the tribes. And I'm just wondering, why such a big goal? I mean, this is, you've had sort of mixed results in the past. Each tribe has tried to do this on their own. What makes this different?
Well, like you said, each tribe has tried to do its own project, do smaller ones, maybe 180 megawatts, 200, and we've all ran into the same obstacles and problems. being investment. Our project developers wanted to run the project, own the project, and paid tribes royalties and lease payments. But so what we did is we tried to do our own projects, and like I said, we ran into different same obstacles. So we came together and said, let's share some ideas, let's find out what's going on. And we had a meeting in Washington where we came together and we brought in some investors, some developers to kind of give us a short lesson. And what intrigued us was one of the investors said, what you're doing is you're too small. Your projects aren't large enough. If you'd go big or huge, you'd get our attention. We'd be more interested in 500 megawatts than we would be 100 megawatts because it's just not worth our time for something that small. So that's what we did, and then we realized if we put all our land, we have 4 reservations that are around 2 million square acres each. So we figured if we could put all our land and all our wind resources together, why not dream big?
So the joint venture that you have with Apex is very unique. It is number one, a joint venture, which is something that Apex doesn't do all that often, or at all, actually.
No, this is our first.
And you, the OSPA, control 51%. I'm curious, number one, what was it about Apex that made them the partner for this? What was it about that?
Well, like I said, our goal was to control and own as much of the project as we could, But realizing that realistically, we're not going to own 100%, So let's see what we can put out there and see how much control and ownership we can. So we put out RFPs, and we got a few responses back. A lot of them were the traditional, we'll lease the land and we'll pay you royalty. So that's not what we were looking for. We had one developer out of Canada, who was very open to 50-50 split and says, yeah, let's work for you. But they weren't real huge and they could only do, they were limited in their capabilities. And thanks to the Clinton Global Initiative, where we actually went public in Chicago, they actually hooked us up with Apex. They said, meet with Apex. I think they might want to be able to assist you and help you. And so when we met with Apex, they told us everything we wanted to hear, and they were just what we were looking for. So
now, you, Caroline, you're responsible for the governing, the helping manage how this is run. Can you give me a sense of what the governing structure looks like and how you developed it with Apex?
Sure. So the Oceti Ŝakowiŋ Power Authority, it's an independent business that's been incorporated under federal law. Okay. It's 100% owned by its 6 founding tribes. It also shares the same tax-exempt status of the tribes. The Power Authority has been pre-approved and empowered by the tribes to develop, finance, operate renewable energy facilities on the reservations. And they've also been pre-approved to enter into business agreements without having to go back to the tribal councils. It's run by a board of directors with a representative from each of the tribes. It also has a council of elders, which advises the board to make sure they adhere to traditional cultural values and standards. And it also keeps in mind the future generations, the youth. They're always that constant reminder of why we're doing this. The reason why this type of structure was put together was from some of the challenges that Lyle was referring to. Typically, a developer would engage with the tribal council in order to do a development project. Well, the tribal council is the governing body of the tribe, and it's very much like the Oakland City Council, the US Congress. That's who you would be having a business agreement with. So needless to say, politics would be involved. It just was not at the right place. There's a lot of change, a lot of turnover. And so the OSPA allowed there to be this independent, separate corporation that could have a long-term stable relationship
What did Apex have to do differently to engage?
Well, right, I think as you mentioned it, this is our only joint venture. Just like any, I think, business, you realize you have to reach out with partners, but you want to drive the bus. I think for this one, though, we saw the opportunity. In my mind, I think what makes the partnership work is an incredible alignment of values and interests. Apex is a mission-driven company. Our mission is to accelerate the shift to clean energy. We're viewing this as this gigawatt opportunity to bring clean energy on. It's a fantastic resource. It's got a net capacity factor above 50%. It's a fantastic project. And in many ways, we're approaching it like we do all projects. There are stakeholders, there are local stakeholders and landowners and permitting authorities, and the folks who are gonna have to live with this for decades. We wanna engage with them. We engage with them like all projects. In this case, the ask was, let's really engage as joint partners here.
The first two projects, just to be clear, are they represent 570
That's right.
megawatts. And there's two different projects.
Two different sites, but joint 570. We're developing them together on parallel tracks. But in terms of governance, I think it's going to come down to communication and trust, and we're going to have to sort things out, and we'll have differences of views. But this alignment of interests is the motivating factor that keeps us together and gives us the reasons to figure out a solution. We all know about relationships and partnerships, and if at some point if you're not having a disagreement, you're not talking enough, because there are bound to be conflicts. But so it's important to lay out, I think, the governance structure and get to know each other, so we can communicate often and really start to, I think, look for issues before they arise and talk them out. Now, that being said, it's an ambitious project. We're planning to bring it online 2021. There's a lot to do. We're working now. The Met towers are up. We're working on layouts. We have to start on permitting, so there's a lot of work to do. And we're going to depend on our partners to help guide us through it. We'll bring our expertise, certainly in financing and tax equity financing and how to raise the investment. The first project is probably going to be $800–900 million total cost. That's a lot. We'll work together. We'll bring our experience, and they'll bring their expertise, and hopefully we'll be on time. Well,
so what kind of knowledge transfer is going on here, right? And how will this impact sort of career development or jobs on the reservations involved in the community, for the community where this will be arising?
Well, I think that's one of the reasons why we picked Apex is, like Steve was saying, the alignment of the values and common goals. And they really embraced that this wasn't just about generating revenues for the tribes, that this was about bringing jobs onto the reservation and jobs for the tribal membership. One of the really unique things we're going to be doing next year, there aren't that many projects, businesses that are on the reservation, so you don't necessarily have people that have an incentive or even the opportunity to get training to become skilled. We're actually working with the tribal employment rights offices on the two reservations where they're tracking workers, what their skill sets are, and we're taking that data, we're marrying it up to what do the project schedules look like, what are the job needs, what are the skill needs for the life of the project. And together we'll be working with Apex, the training offices, with the local colleges to develop the curriculum, to make sure that people are trained and ready to be hired when the jobs come. We're also looking at programs in the schools so that we can start getting the kids interested in renewable energy, and this is something that's coming to their reservation, something to be proud of, and a potential long-term career opportunity when we have to maintain and operate the wind farms.
If I can add, we've built over 1 gigawatt of operating wind farms in Oklahoma, and they actually have an existing program now with the vocational community colleges in Oklahoma to train them for wind technicians. And so to us, this looked a lot similar to what we've been doing for the past 10 years in Oklahoma. So it's a fantastic advantage for the project as well to have local skilled talent available.
And to show the commitment of the Apex company, they have a summer internship program they've been running for years. We advertise that in the local tribal colleges. This summer, they hired 3 interns that are Native American students from South Dakota, 2 of them female engineers and 1 male business administration student. So they've really embraced and owned being that partner in helping move this forward.
Do you want to add something?
Yeah, like you said, we're working with our college. We all have 4-year colleges on our reservation. So we're working with them right now to try to develop a curriculum so we can have our students come out and we'll be ready for these new green jobs or new energy jobs.
You know, so a lot of the companies in this audience are signing power purchase agreements for projects, big wind projects. So what would a potential partner need to know about getting involved in this one?
Come talk to us. We are looking for partners. We need your help.
But it's a 2020...
2021.
Okay. You know, how will this benefit other Sioux tribes? Like, how could this model be replicated in other areas of your state? Or
we look at it as not only able to benefit other Sioux tribes. You know, we have a lot of Sioux tribes. We have tribes in Minnesota, North Dakota, Nebraska, South Dakota, Montana, and even in Canada. But it's very rare for our tribes to come together and collaborate with anything because each tribe views itself as their own sovereign. Mm-hmm. So each tribe does its own thing. So it's very kind of difficult to bring us together to share information or share resources. So what we figure is if we could get this off the ground and we could be successful with this, we can give that template not only to other Sioux tribes, but to other tribes across the country on how they can come together and use their resources.
Elaine, you're all lit up. I'd love to take a question from Sidebar.
Yeah, it's interesting. You guys are answering all the questions that are coming in, but it's good, actually. So my question is actually a little bit more, because we have a lot of renewable energy buyers here who are doing community choice aggregation and other things like that. So one question from Twitter was, how does OSPA compare with the CCAs across the country? So is it mainly the joint venture sole developer partnership with Apex, or what else? What are the other options?
Yeah, I think the question is, OSPA isn't per se a utility, right? You wouldn't be...
We're more of a wholesale.
Yeah.
I mean, over time, we want to be able to bring the electric service to the reservations, but that's not our original intent.
The project will be exporting to the grid, the ISO. So we're looking for power buyers on the wholesale grid.
It's going the southwest.
SPP, yeah.
Well, okay, so here's a different question then. One of the challenges is transmission.
Right.
Have you found partners for improving distribution?
Again, go ahead, Carolyn.
Well, I was going to say the initial 2 projects, part of why they were selected, one, the tribes were ready to move forward, had the lease agreements, the community engagement, but it was also because we were able to leverage available capacity. So the 450 megawatts on the Cheyenne River Reservation is tying into a WAPA line. And then we also have, we're limited to 120 megawatts on Pine Ridge simply because of available transmission capacity.
Oh, nice.
And then over time, we're hoping that we can build out more transmission because there's just so much wind resources, solar resources that need to be unlocked from this area.
That's cool. So building on the, given that you have transmission and there are a number of other things that kind of lock you in the current structure, wondering, you were talking about jobs and you were also talking about helping other tribes outside of the Sioux. So there's clearly a need for more economic opportunity, or there are economic opportunities in the renewable energy landscape for tribes. Is there a broader coalition in place to help all tribes or a subset of tribes outside of Sioux?
Not at this moment. When we talk about other economic opportunities, we're looking at a lot of construction jobs in the initial construction phase, and then maybe a few permanent maintenance jobs, but we're looking at the revenue that we'll be generating where we can invest in other projects and we could use that revenue to maybe invest in other tribal projects outside the Sioux Nation too also. So that's what we're looking at.
And if I could just add, one of the things that we are doing, because a lot of the project will be on trust lands, lands owned by the tribe, lands owned by tribal members that the federal government holds in trust. We've been working with the Bureau of Indian Affairs on a model lease agreement that we can use across all of our projects. We're hoping they then use that. They've never done a large wind lease like this before. They'll be able to use that, the other BIA regional offices and the other tribes, so that we've started to put together the model agreements they'll need to move their projects forward.
If I can add one thing on jobs, I think what we're seeing in very resource-rich areas, either wind or solar rich areas, is forever going to be a generation pocket for very cheap electricity. So if you as a manufacturer are looking for your next spot to put your data center or your manufacturing or whatever it is, we're hoping this is going to demonstrate, put a flag on the map saying maybe we should check this out. And we can connect to you, or we can have the local utility connect to you. They would love to bring more load to this area. So in some ways, I think this is phase one of multiple phases. So to me, the real economic growth isn't necessarily the construction jobs or the wind techs. That's great. But what we're really creating is this energy hub, wind, solar, with skilled workforce that hopefully is going to attract actually good old-fashioned manufacturing to this area where it hasn't been before. I mean, to me, that's the promise of renewable energy in the Midwest of North America. It can almost redefine the entire manufacturing landscape, pull it off from the coast and put it into the center, and then we can put the goods on hyperloops and get them to the coast or something, right? But if you think about it, if you think about what we're really tapping into is this tremendous resource that isn't going away. It's going to be fixed cost forever, and we just need to build it right now, and the next round is going to be cheaper and cheaper. So eventually, economics will work. If the price of something is low enough, users will find a way to get to it. And we're already seeing it in West Texas, where manufacturers are coming to us and say, how can I directly connect to your wind farm? And for us, that's good too, because we're waiting for transmission log jams to clear. Well, let's just skip over that and go right to load.
Sadly, we are out of time. I hate to do this, but please thank our panelists. Thank you. And yes, it took 5. We're off before you thought.